Hello, this is J.N.S. and today I just want to really briefly cover something that's just on my mind. I actually wanted to publish this on the Nakhti Church of the Higher Self YouTube channel, but since that channel is new, I guess you have to wait like 24 hours before you can go live and whatnot. And so I didn't necessarily want to pre-record that video on that channel. I actually wanted to go live. And so I'm just going to upload it to this channel. But today I actually want to talk about how reflexivity in today's age is going to become more important than this shadow work that's being pushed. Like, in the spiritual community, new age, occult, esoteric, what have you, there's this extreme push, I would say, at least for the last 10 years, and it's probably always been relevant in some extent in mystery schools, just to a more hidden degree. But one thing that I'm just noticing is this push on the public, this obsession with everybody has to do their shadow work. You must do your shadow work. You must do your shadow work. And it's coming from, to me, more of a skewed point of view, because to do this shadow work, this supposed shadow work, one has to access the hidden faculties or the shadow aspects of their personality, of their particular trauma, or of their subconscious mind, the things that are buried within this quote unquote subconscious mind. So we want to unpack this idea of a subconscious mind. We want to unpack what that is first. And then we want to unpack this idea of, is that shadow? Is that hidden? And so when we talk about juxtapose that rather with this idea of reflexivity, I will be breaking that down. I will be talking about what that looks like. Uh, but we want to first unpack the idea of the subconscious, of trauma, childhood trauma, repressed emotions, repressed trauma, things of that nature. And if it's even truly repressed, given this is the quote unquote subconscious mind playing out, and we know very much so things about the subconscious mind and its play and its power over the conscious mind, over your behavior and external reality. And so let's unpack that. And so first, we have this thing in analytical psychology called the subconscious mind. You have the conscious mind, then you have, I think it's super ID or super conscious ID or something like that, or ego or and whatnot. But I I just been thinking about this for a minute, and I personally do not think that what we call subconscious, for one, is hidden. And I also am going to state that the word subconscious is the wrong word for expressing mind behind mind, or consciousness behind mind, awareness behind mind. Um, to an extent, because it's auto, and it's prime because, as they say, or as we can see, that which is within that auto conscious, or within the quote unquote subconscious, affects 95% of your behavior. You're only ruled in terms of your reasoning, in terms of the logic conscious mind, by 5%. And so, with that said, um, how is that subconscious? How is that hidden? How is that shadow? How is that if it's 95% of what's playing out in your reality, or if it's 95% of your behavior? There's nothing hidden about that. There's nothing sub about that. It's actually prime conscious. And so the subconscious, what we're calling subconscious, I'm going to call that prime conscious, auto conscious. It's auto conscious because it represents the set of programming that you have been giving their social engineering, be it from your parents, be it from society, be it from the institutions, the schools, the whatever you've been fed, whatever content has been fed in your mind is what is going to make up your auto conscious, your prime conscious. It is not subconscious. And to call it subconscious, it is a spell to actually keep your psychic power hidden. Your actual the psychic power and your true power comes from the prime conscious, your auto conscious. And by calling it the subconscious, you're putting yourself under a spell, because for one, you're making it inferior. You're calling it a shadow, for one. You're saying that it's hidden. It's not. So you're not really, how are you, you're not really addressing that shadow, this quote unquote hidden aspect, and not in the terms of doing the inner engineering, this inner technology route of the spirit, for the simple fact that you are calling it sub, you're calling it hidden. And so it's a skewed way to look at this. And also, it's making, on a auto-conscious level, the logical and the conscious superior to the prime conscious, superior to the auto-conscious, the aspect that gives you your intuition, your heart place, your intuition, um your emotion state, your emotional body, the etheric body, is all connected to the auto-conscious prime conscious, what you guys are calling subconscious, what you guys are saying is behind the conscious. It's not behind the conscious, it drives the conscious. Very much so. If 95% of your behaviors is the makeup of the content that's been fed in your etheric and mind body, since childhood, so it's prime conscious. Very much so, it's auto conscious, and that is what affects reality. That is what gives you your sense of willpower, your sense of self efficacy. Sorry, your sense of self efficacy, and your ability to create. And so that's what I'm discovering. I'm not saying I'm a master at the autoconscious level of mastering the autoconscious. And this is something that I had to unlearn, because again, I was a big component of always constantly saying mastery of the subconscious, mastery of subconscious. But what I really meant was mastery of the prime conscious, mastery of the content that you even allow into your prime conscious, with affects and drives your state of consciousness. And that's what the Nakhti philosophy was actually talking about. The content that goes into all the chambers of your mind, your emotional self, the what we call the motherboard, the RAM, which is prime, your subconscious, your prime conscious, and I'm sorry, which is your prime conscious and your conscious. And so it is the prime conscious, and it is the emotional body. And again, these ties, it's like, I wish I can draw a graph for you. It's you have the prime conscious, and then you have these antennas, reaching out to the etheric and emotional body. It's connected in the content that goes within that, and these make up chambers, mind you, of the mind. If you look at the Chati of self chart in the Nakti philosophy, you'll see the breakdown of these chambers of the mind, but they're not linear. Um, and so even though the chart is linear, it's not linear. But that is what drives your state of consciousness. And so that's not shadow. It's very much in the light, because you can see what's in someone's subconscious mind, or which quote unquote subconscious mind, by observing their behavior, by observing their actions, by observing what comes out of their mouth, by looking at the state of their life, by looking at, you can do that. You can do that with me, you can do that with anybody. You'll be able to access quite a bit. That's not that's so this idea of the shadow work is nothing, it's not hidden. And so it needs something much more deeper to address that. Now, acknowledging trauma and acknowledging the past, or acknowledging repressive things that you are ashamed of, or things like that, I understand that, going into the more lower parts of the self. um Again, I would just argue that that's the prime conscious aspect affecting, driving your state of consciousness. And that's not, to get to the level of, say, transcendence or enlightenment, that's shadow work is not going to be enough. So maybe that's a component of understanding, the your feelings, or understanding, or accepting your trauma, your past, facing your fears. I think that that's an aspect of it, but I don't think that is the, like, the way these spiritual communities push that. I mean, it's not a spiritual teacher that I haven't heard just constantly ramble on. You gotta do your shadow work. God is say do your shadow work. God says do your shadow work. You must do your shadow work. You must. And I was on that shadow. I have books with chapters dedicated to shadow work. Okay, and so, but I will admit that that is subliminal programming to me. It seems like it's being pushed from the top, or it's being pushed from an order. Something is being pushed though to me, and I fell for that push, and it's nothing. It's nothing to even say I fell for. It's just more so like it was a state of time that we were in, probably the period of 2020, 21, and it started in 2016. But when I started particularly paying attention to it, I want to say when I started writing about it, rather, when I started writing about it was in 2020. And so I started really thinking, I'm like, and when I kept hearing it, kept hearing people push this shadow work stuff, it felt very much uh robotic. It felt like programming. It felt like somebody was trying to program me with this. Like, you must do your shadow work. You must do your shadow work. And I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, um, if my quote unquote subconscious is this makeup of the content of the mind from repressive emotions, repressed traumas in childhood, and it's not just when we say that the subconscious mind is just made up of that. That's also skewed, because your subconscious mind is like a repository of your personal collective conscious, your individual conscious, collective conscious, and so giving such an inauspicious take on the subconscious mind, also it's skewed. It's skewed. It keeps you from deep depth work of inner engineering, of reflexivity. And so, for one, I don't think the idea of this shadow work, it alludes to addressing hidden, perhaps even traumatic, negative aspects of the self, aspects of the lower self, and it asks you to sift through this aspect of your mind, this subconscious mind, quote unquote, to work through that. I guess talk about that. Go to therapy, do some shadow work prompts, some journal prompts, perhaps, and then I guess you would come to terms with that, and then supposedly you would integrate that with your conscious mind. You don't need to integrate uh, anything. You don't have to consciously integrate. It does the work itself for it. It's an automatic process. That's why calling it, making it superior, making it inferior to the conscious mind, calling it sub. Because what is the breakdown of sub? Let's look that up. Let's look up the prefix of sub. Um, prefix sub, because I know autoconsciously that it means under, beneath. So that is the prefix of sub. The morphe tends to mean, yeah. So yep, I'm just looking that up for us. English language prefix include oh, to remember, under, submarine, under. Okay, yeah. Beneath, at the bottom, down, low, lower. Subconscious mind is not lower. Believe it or not, this auto conscious, prime conscious is connected to your higher self. I want to make that very clear. It's connected to your higher self. It's not lower. Now, in this dimension, what happens is, I'm going to keep it real with you. You humans are programmed with lower level content. And when you content, what we call it in Nakhti philosophy is V2, content that makes up the mind. It consists of anything on a material realm. So while you have a physical body, while you're in a physical flesh, anything that is able to penetrate the mind, be it media, school, doctrines, indoctrination, religious institutions, whatever. If it is V2, if it is content, if it is in its third dimensional realm, or now we're in fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, whatever. If it's in a dimension where you have physicality, then it is content, essentially. And so you can have systems in place, and you can have institutions in place, and you can have people in place, right? Agent Smiths, that are programming humanity on a collective level with lower level content of the mind. So they're disconnecting you from the higher self. And then they call in it subconscious mind. That's a spell. Subconscious lower. Mind you, 95% of your behavior is driven by the quote unquote subconscious, which is really your autoconscious prime conscious. It is your prime conscious. The prime conscious that is connected with the intuition and emotional body and in your etheric body, emotional and etheric body. So that's connected to the spirit. So when you call the subconscious lower, you're disconnecting yourself from spirit. Then when you are programmed with lower level content and then they tell you to do your shadow work and you sifting through all this trauma, do you think you're going to get transcendence? Do you think is that going to lead to enlightenment? I mean, it probably leads to self acceptance. If anything, it leads to accepting of the lower self. You get it? Subconscious, lower self, lower beneath the conscious. It gets you to accept your lower self, but in a sense, it gets you to stay there on a, on. It's a spell that pretty much primes you to be okay with settling for the lower self. In so many words, to accept it, to be at peace with it. Um, and I guess you can come to terms. There's a lot that you can do with at that level. Uh, but again, it's skewed, and then you're supposed to integrate that with your conscious mind. Hmm. So that also seems skewed. The prime conscious is supposed to be integrated with the conscious mind. That's not the content area. The conscious mind is the output. It is the output that reflects on your external reality. That's where the there's light. Now, this prime conscious represents primordial energy. Now, people can call that darkness, but darkness does not equate to any moral turpitude. And by that, it has no connotation with the concept or of good or evil, bad or good, uh, auspicious and auspicious. That is not what we're talking about. We're talking about primordial energy from the cosmos, spirit air that connects you to the resonance realm that gives rise to your electromagnetic self. And so your primordial prime mind, prime conscious, auto conscious has to be fed with certain content, what we call V2 in the Nakhti philosophy, has to be fed with certain content throughout. And preferably you want the content while you're in a physical body, you want the content that is going to feed you with love and uh, with peace and with things that are auspicious so that your conscious mind, once you go to the output level of the computer brain, your reality is reflected in that sense. Now, if you can really assess planet Earth and we are living on planet Earth or a dimension of Earth, and if you can, supposedly, and if you can really assess that, and this is a simulation, mind you, um, a dimension of a simulation. And so, if you can really assess that, what's been going on down here, um, do you guys think that humanity collectively has been fed content that is auspicious, that primes them to be in full empowerment of their conscious mind? Has their prime conscious, auto conscious, been programmed in a way that allows for the for the conscious mind to reflect a light of reality that is conducive to the cosmos, that is conducive to humanity itself, or to this dimension, this simulation rather. And so that is what that is why I think that this idea of the shadow work is very skewed. It's programming that once you unpack it, it gives you, it doesn't push you far enough. It doesn't push you. It limits you in dimensionality and interdimensionality. It limits you clearly. And so I would argue, well, I would say that what you guys are calling subconscious mind is prime conscious, auto conscious. It is connected to the primordial realm, primordial energy that is an antenna, or that is a connector. I wish I could draw a picture of this, to your etheric and emotional body. Obviously, this intuition realm, and that's very powerful. That's where your power is at, and that drives most of your behavior, most of what you see in your reality, and most of what you see. And so, um, when you come to this dimension, and you have parents and family and friends and things you have to do, rules you have to follow, government. What does government mean? Govern the mind control. So, um, you're being controlled, you're being programmed rather, with content that is going to affect this subconscious, this lower beneath your conscious, supposedly. So, a input that affects your output, that drives your state of conscious, is what this dimension is calling low. Um, and then it's a double entendre. Again, it's a spell. So they're calling it low, and you're being programmed with low shit, low level shit most of the time, from childhood on, whether it be the education system, whether it be indoctrination from religion, indoctrination from institutions. Uh, you have some people are horrible parents. You have parents that uh, treat their children horribly, call them children's names. They program them with low level shit. They don't breathe life into them. They don't breathe light into them, breathe love into them, breathe peace into them. And so many, and for Black Americans, I come from a Black American background, but anybody can listen to this and learn from this. Um, we know the traumas that many of our parents have put us through. And so, and that goes for all of humanity, and so again, and then once you go through all of these things in life and you get to a certain age, they just tell you, oh, do your shadow work, go and face all of that, through go and look at all of that, all of this repressed emotions, look at yourself, look at the things, the flaws, look at all your flaws, and integrate that with the conscious mind. And so, but if you reflect on everything around your reality, and this goes for me, I'm doing this reflexivity, and I'm talking to myself as I'm talking to you, so do not think that, I'm trying to talk at you, and I'm not, this is like real reflexive work in real time. So, walk with me, on these things. And so, very much so, this shadow work thing, there's nothing hidden about it. And so, um it's a reflective light. It's a and to me, it's nothing hidden about it, because your reality is reflecting the prime conscious mind, and your prime conscious mind is making up 95% of your behavior. This is just analytical psychology, is it not? 95% of your behavior is a result of your prime conscious, autoconscious mind. It's your emotional, intuitive, raw, primordial self. This is connected to the higher self. So, what I'm saying is, we get out of the spell of calling it subconscious, and that we are very, very much aware of society's programming within the prime conscious. That's where you want to stop. That's where you want to start when you do this, for one. Then you want to see how, through the chambers of the Chatiya self and the Nakhti philosophy, now you want to look at all the chambers of the mind and determine the inauspicious content, auspicious content. Did it come from family? Did it come from friends? Did it come from programming institutions? Did it come from yourself? And then you look at that. This is reflexivity now. You see how that reflected on itself. How did that affect you? How did that breed about certain personality traits and characters? Then, you can assess whether or not you want to keep that in your state of mind for the output level, which is the conscious mind uh, that's going to drive your state of consciousness. Do you want that in your state of consciousness? Yes or no? That's reflexivity. That's not shadow work, because there is no process of integration. There's nothing that needs to be integrated if you do this reflexivity right. So let's actually go into. I think I made my point clear about how the the prime conscious mind is not the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is not lower. It is prime conscious, autoconscious. Nothing lower about it because it governs the output, the conscious mind for one, as reflected in your reality. Two, uh, the content is going to affect that prime conscious mind. And so everyone has to be careful. And this is especially if you're a parent of the prime conscious aspect becomes extremely powerful. And that is what does that is where the content or what we call they call it programming, social engineering, that is where the content enters and affects and makes up socialization to an extent and makes up a personality. Like they say, a child by the time they are 5 years old, that's when they really get a sense of their individual personality. Well, who was programming that child up until their age of 5, up until the age of 18, and possibly even their whole life? You know, if they are developing this personality by the age of 5, they're getting content. They're in the physical flesh. Yes, they may have past life affecting them. They can have etheric energy affecting them, ancestral DNA affecting them, light codes affecting them. Sure, I give you that. But as you can see, even with all of that, that can be buried by the programming of simulation, by the programming of the dormant urge, as the Gnostics would call it, this material realm, dense, low level. Then they're going to program these children, the subconscious mind, the lower self, lower mind, uh, for the next. What for when you go to kindergarten, the kindergarten, grammar school, high school, college. It's all programming. Then you got your parents programming you. And they most likely brainwashed. And so this idea of this shadow work, to me, it seems like busy work to keep humans from really diving deep into like, oh, wait a minute, this ain't this ain't really getting me to my higher self. I'm doing this shadow work and I'm still having these issues, or I'm having you said this was integrated, but then you see a motherfucker have breakdowns and stuff. And breakdowns are not necessarily a bad thing, but you'll see like some of these quote unquote you'll see a celebrity or somebody that is clearly, into esoteric studies, or they may know things, or you're right, uh, MK Ultra, or whatever, and then they break down. They supposedly was doing all this shadow work, and they were supposedly integrating everything with their, subconscious mind. I don't know if you guys remember that it was a show where they had the celebrities go to therapy with this particular black therapist. I think he was into Eastern school of thought. But they would have. I remember Katy Perry was on there, and I remember the horrific energy. It was in 2017. I was watching that, and I remember he was telling her, "Oh, you're a goddess, and you got to integrate it." And it's something with integration of the pain. She was crying, and I just remember thinking like, I remember thinking like, this is programming. I just remember feeling that instinctively, like it's something off with that. Why is he? It was something off, and so now I get it. And so now I get how uh this idea of calling this prime conscious subconscious is disconnecting you from the primordial realm. It's disconnecting from your higher self. It's disconnecting you from the emotional intuitive body. That's where your power from. That's where your psychic power command comes from. As you learn, if you read psychomancy, psychic power, I believe that's the title of it. That's something that I'm reading, and they don't really talk on it in depth like that, but they do mention something about autoconscious mind, and I was just like, that's it. That's it. And so the book is a little rudimentary for me, but it's a good book, and this idea of this autoconscious, w- giving rise to like this, your psychic power command, your ability to manifest, your ability to really create. There's nothing sub about that, and it doesn't. and to put this negative connotation with repression and subconscious and shadow, hidden self, and all this, the lower self, on something that is, it's reversed. And that's what I'm trying to get you to see. What you guys are calling subconscious and what you guys are saying is the hidden shadow self, it's reversed. And eventually people will see that. So what's the solution? Or what do you suggest? Because solutions take more analysis than what I can do in this particular video. And again, this is like something I'm doing straight off the dome. It's just something I was thinking about. And so I will say that as I talk about reflexivity, I'm going to most likely add to it extensively, um, and whatnot. I'm gonna have to flesh all that out extensively when we talk about, well, what's the better method. Obviously, reflexivity is an Nakhti philosophy that I wrote in 2020. You can download that for free if you go to my Twitter. You'll find a link, or you can just message me or whatever. But that Nakhti philosophy book, it teaches you how to organize the chambers of the self, the mind, to pick a state of conscious that you want to be on, whether it's the transcendent stage, the enlightenment stage, the mindfulness stage, where you more into meditation, the wisdom stage, the magician stage, the earth level. Even if you just want to just get by, not really thinking, not really concerned with transcendence, or more of the spiritual aspects of the self. And so it requires assessing the content of the prime conscious mind, of all chambers of the mind, the etheric body, the emotional body, what we call motherboard, and this spiritual technology. And why is if you look at the Nakhti philosophy, why do we use such technological terms regarding the mind? Because the mind is a computer. It's a supercomputer. The computer that you see, that you play with, or the internet that you play with, that is the simulated version of a mind, of consciousness. It's simulated. That's actually real artificial intelligence, by the way. uh, you can create egregores of repository artificial, and you can create egregores of repository intelligence and use it as a database to help facilitate you as a species. But that's not artificial intelligence. That has the potential to become very sentient, in fact. But your phone and your laptop, your computer, desktop, and all that, that's artificial intelligence. That's a mimic of your brain and the internet in particular. Those are mimicries of the way the universe and the mind works. So again, this is derma urge. This is the material realm, which the Gnostics wrongfully alluded to being Sophia. That's not the case at all. The creator, I don't even want to get into that. That stuff is too deep, but that has nothing to do with the divine feminine, the material realm, not even remotely. So I don't know why the Gnostics were writing about that. And so, um, but they're right about a lot of things though. But that, I just was like, what? So I was reading some of that stuff. But so let's talk about what reflexivity means. So reflexivity is an act of self-reference where existence engenders examination. So just you existing, self-reference engenders examination. So you are examining the self. The self is beyond prime conscious. I'm sorry, the self is beyond the conscious mind. The self is beyond the quote unquote subconscious mind. That's why you want to get out of that spell of calling it subconscious, saying that it's shadow work and that you're going into the darkness and looking at the lower self and integrating it. And all of that is it's not enough. Okay. And you're engendering that examination by which the thinking action bends back on and refers to and affects the entity instigating the action or examination. Okay, so it's referred to the capacity of yourself to recognize the forces of socialization, the forces of programming, okay, the forces of social engineering that alter your place in the social structure, in the simulation. That's why that is why reflexivity is extremely important. Okay, you're examining all faculties of the self, particularly the prime conscious mind, which connects to your higher self. And what you're really doing as you're doing that is you are recognizing the forces of programming, the forces of social engineering that alter your reality in this simulation, that alter your place in the social structure. Because people program the shit out of you. It starts as a kid. Starts with the education system. Are you kidding me? Starts with a government. That's programming. You're a little kid, you say pledge allegiance, you walk in a straight line, you gotta follow the rules, gotta take your quiz and test you on what we taught you and standardized test. All of these it's gonna affect you. Are you kidding me? It's totally gonna affect your reality and you as the self. Well, I really don't want to use the word self because the self can't really be affected by that. It affects the prime conscious. Let's say that it's going to affect the prime conscious. That's the perfect way to say that because that is going to really drive your state of conscious. That's going to drive the output, which is the conscious level. And so the conscious aspect of the mind is not so much a logical reasoning aspect of it. It tries to reason, it tries to be logical, but it's the output for the conscious. So the conscious level is where you can do that reflexivity because now it's like you're at the light level. That there's nothing hidden or shadow about that. You are totally investigating. You are investigating and examining the recognized forces of the programming, of the socialization, of the social engineering that alters your reality and your place in the simulation. In whatever dimension you're in, whatever universe you're in the social structure. Okay, so a low level of reflexivity will result in individuals shaped largely by their environment. Look how many zombies, look how many agents, Smiths is running around here. It's a low level of reflexivity. And then those people are running around saying that they're doing shadow work. um, from the subconscious mind of the lower sub mind and disconnecting from again, it's a spell. It's a spell. It's a spell. Okay. But a high level of social reflexivity or a high level of reflexivity of the prime conscious mind would be defined by individuals shaping their own norms, their own tastes, their own programming, their own desires. Okay. That is autonomy, autoconscious, autonomy. And so that's where you want to get to. That's what the Nakhti philosophy teaches. You pick the V2 that you want in the mind, in all chambers of the mind. We call it the self. We making up now. The Nakhti philosophy it deals with the mind, but it also addresses the self for those who can catch it. For those who are advanced, if you're past the level of the mind, then when you see the chati itself, you say, "Okay, I understand what that is." I could go skip through all of that and go straight to the self. But for those that are not at that level, you know, we take it slower. Take it slower. And so that's what the Nike philosophy teaches you is that idea of reflexivity. I'm going through all of the inauspicious and auspicious aspects of the prime conscious mind, the the uh, the conscious mind, the emotional body, the etheric body, and I am choosing. Okay, did I like this programming? Did I like this content? Did I like this what we call V2 content? Did I like this content that was fed to me? No, I don't like this content. Okay, I'm transmuting that. Did I like this content? Yes, I do. I want to keep this content in my so because I want it to drive my state of consciousness so I can create my reality. And this is work that takes some while. It takes a while to get. It's not something that comes overnight. Maybe for some of you lucky souls it will. um, but when I wrote the Nike philosophy, I was in stages of addressing inauspicious and auspicious content within all factors of my mind and the self, seeing what actually affected me on the soul level as well. And finding ways to transmute that. Now, as I was doing that, I was into I wouldn't say necessarily the left hand path, and that unfortunately, all this stuff has been so messed up and misinterpreted and reversed. So even if we say left hand path, you guys associate it with Western occultism, uh, or this Satanism or whatever, and that's not nothing nowhere. What I was referring to, or what I am referring to. I'm talking about the Eastern Agori tradition, and even the Agori tradition has been bastardized by Westerners, and so there's this idea of the five symbolistic uh what they call it, the five M's, and so you can engage in that symbolistically or physically. You can actually go and engage in agori practices, but the main tenet of that teaching is that a child does not have any discrimination between the mundane and the sacred, or uh, they have no discrimination between, say, uh, let's see, something that's kind of disgusting. Let's see, human waste. They wouldn't be able to make a baby wouldn't be able to make a distinction between that and say a flower. They wouldn't have any discrimination, because that level of self, that level of purity, or the level beyond this conception of purity and impurity. So they're still at the transcendent level. They're beyond impurity and purity. They have no discrimination between it. They have no. It's the same to them. A baby. And so that is the actual real teaching of the Agora. It doesn't mean go and engage in the mundane and sit there. What Westerners interpret that to mean. It just meant that they are at the transcendent level because they're from the etheric realm, and immediately coming straight from that etheric realm, they don't have discrimination. They're beyond the level of purity and impurity. They're beyond the level of duality. They're beyond the level of taxonomy. That's all it meant. And so, um, in that sense, to know contrast, to experience that duality, especially if you're in a physical realm, you would need something to compare these things to. And so, while you can arbitrarily list things as auspicious and auspicious, pure, impure, you can arbitrarily do that in any simulation that you're in. Um, Again, you don't forget the transcendent self. You don't forget the higher self. You don't forget the self. And so, and that's also another part of the teaching. Uh, oh man, let me actually get this for you. The Agori teaching. Do but remain conscious. I just want to get the exact teaching, and I don't want to paraphrase off of my own um, words. I actually want to get it verbatim. So this is a monastic order of the uh, ascetic Shaivite Sadhus in India, obviously. But this also has some has I believe it's from the Kaula Upanishad. Some of these teachings are referenced there, and that has some reference to the Shakti school of thought as well. Even getting into total darkness means and getting to the light or self-realizing. And total darkness is just primordial energy, again, beyond the idea of pure and impurity. That's when they say that Agori believes in getting into total darkness, that's what that means. The primordial energy of the cosmos is beyond, is you starting from the transcendent level, then you're doing taxonomy from the transcendent level. That's what that means. And so I'm trying to find that quote for you. So let's see. Okay, so they say that believe their state. See, the gurus and disciples of the Agora believe their state to be primordial and universal. Yep. And so children become progressively discriminating as they grow older and learn culturally specific attachments and aversions of their parents. So that's the programming, that's the content, that's the V2. Okay. As they become increasingly aware of their mortality, they bumps their head and fall to the ground. They come to fear their mortality. And that fear is the way they deny it altogether. So so they're starting from the transcendent, again, the primordial, the universal. That is what darkness means. Um, and then they are, as they grow older, this idea of understanding contrast, understanding discrimination, and socialization on the self, the idea of the programming and the content that affects the prime conscious mind or the self. And so I was really trying to find that verse for you. Really, really trying to find it because it's important because when someone says, because I know I mentioned like part of my enlightenment had come from me studying this stuff, but what you see today is such a botched version of it. What you see today is such a botched version of what people say is the left hand path. People say is um, the teachings of the East with the Agori teachings and the um, Qualo Upanishads, the divine feminine, the Shakti energy. It's just everything is reversed, and so it's such a twisted version of when you say one thing, the way that society is programmed, they're automatically going to assume something that you don't mean because the lack of study and the lack of awareness primarily. Okay, so I can go here actually and find that verse for you. I wrote a book on Tantra for the Human Soul, exploring sexuality for bliss and enlightenment. And Tantra can be performed by yourself or with a partner. But I mention it in this book, so I'm going to just scroll down and to get you that mantras. Just going through the chapters, guys. But I hope you can understand a bit of what I mean about the reflexivity. Let's see. Almost done, guys. Almost there. Tantra massage. Okay. Goodness. So, how many chapters did I write in this book? Yeah, so Tantra is actually one aspect of the left hand path as well, believe it or not. And again, these things were to teach self realization. And I do want to make it very clear. This is another thing I want to talk about. Like when we talk about like left hand path, that leads to um, what was originally the term Varmachara. Okay, so that actually just meant woman. It actually did not. Varmachara is what people refer to as left now, but Varma actually meant woman. And it just was arguing that this attachment, again, to this conception of purity can be a hindrance in achieving self realization. But again, it didn't mean to let's go and do impure things. It just meant uh, we're coming from the idea of the self beyond the conception of impurity and impurity. What is that gives rise to this idea of purity and impurity? What is that which gives rise to the capacity to conceive of that? The capacity to conceive of dark and light, the capacity to conceive of good or bad. What is giving that the capacity of that? That's what uh, you want to address to get to self realization. So that's all that path actually meant before all this nonsense. My goodness. Okay, so that's what Varmachara, the left hand path of Tantra, Varma meant woman, and that is really what that path is. And so the five M's that I was referring to of the and Tantra was Matahuna, Madra, Masa, Matsya, and Mudra. And so Matsukuna just means sexual union. You can do that with yourself. And when I talked about the five symbolic makaras, and these were the five forbidden things, um, when a teacher teaches this to someone, they're usually they will ask them to, if you're, responsible, you would encourage them to do the symbolic version of these things, because if you become too attached and indulgent within these five forbidden things and the makaras, then you risk total self-destruction, or just unenlightened soul. A lot, just be unenlightened, and you can forget the higher self, and you can forget the self itself, the mind beyond mind, or consciousness beyond mind, rather awareness beyond mind. And so that's why you don't want to encourage people to actually engage in these things. That's why the left hand path of tantra was very much secretive, and very much for advanced souls, very much so. And so Matayuna means sexual union, Madra means wine, Mansa means meat, Matsya means fish, Mudra means parched grains or money. And so, uh, yes, I did use this path to get to enlightenment. Many that this was a big component of it, because I had to assess the socialization of programming, of my programming, and in doing that, um, there was this reflexivity that I had to do within this simulation. And so that path allowed me to sift through taxonomy. It allowed me to understand the what we call, again, the awareness beyond the mind. What is that which gives capacity to this conception of pure and impurity, of the perception of perception and non-perception itself. And so wine had allowed me to do that. But I would not ever encourage anyone to go to that path, because it is the quickest way to enlightenment, but it is also the quickest way to self-destruction. And so, when we talk about like the people that is pushing this shadow work stuff, and the people that is pushing, like, oh, the shadow work and the left hand path, and go into the darkness, and go into the, and then they're not mentioning nothing about the primordial state of the self, the primordial state of transcendence, the prime, the the awareness beyond the mind, nothing beyond the mind, nothing beyond the nothing of the higher self. Then I know that there's some skewed programming in it. Then I know that it's something off. And so that's what I would say. And so when we talk about this reflexivity, you can do this on any path that you're on. If you're choosing the right hand path, if you're choosing the Gnostic way, Abrahamic ways, Islamic, Buddhist, Hindu, uh, the various sects, and the mysticisms within these branches, the Sufism, the Kabbalah, whatever. You can do this reflexivity, the Nakhti philosophy concepts within any of that, because the Nakhti philosophy is it's the same stuff we've been saying for the last 2,000 years. The same for the last 6,000 years, rather. It's just more updated, based on the condition that humanity is in. You can't have something that's from 2,000 years ago and try to apply it to the condition that humanity is in. Now, some of these things that we have used to gain enlightenment are classics. They're always going to be classics, or they have a lot of redacted shit in them. They have a lot of hidden stuff in them. They have, so, like, for instance, the Bible. We know how many books was removed, anywhere from damn near 45 books removed from the Bible. Uh, the original teachings of Jesus, his lost years, are not in there. Some people have written about it, but the lost years of Jesus studying in India and studying in Egypt, that didn't make it in the Bible. And so when I draw the connections between Hinduism and Jesus' teachings, people are looking at me like, "Oh my gosh, you're blasphemous," or "What are you doing?" And when I have a clear understanding of what took place, this man clearly studied in Egypt and in India. Clearly, I mean, that's just clear as day. His teachings, the parables, you run parallels between the stuff that the Buddha was saying and stuff that is in many of these other schools of thoughts. It's the same shit. It's actually quite genius. It's great psychology, great mental science. It's great intergalactic mentalism. Great, if anything, if you don't get anything else out of it. And so the reflexivity, it just it deals with is intergalactic mentalism. That's what the Nakhti philosophy is, and it's not meant to put myself on to exalt itself or to do anything. It's just I want to encourage humans to examine, or any species to examine the the programming, the reflexivity, the programming, and the socialization, and that alters your place in a simulation or in the social structure. You want to recognize those forces. You want to recognize that content, what we call V2. You want to recognize that programming, or what social engineering, whatever. And so, again, a high level of reflexivity is defined by you as yourself, shaping your own norms, your own taste, your own politics and desires, only after doing that reflexive work. Reflexivity. Go through the prime conscious mind. Go through the emotional body. Go through the etheric self. Go through the conscious mind. Would you? We don't call in the Nakhti class. We don't call these terms. We say RAM, motherboard, because we understand that the mind is a simulated. It's not a simulated. The mind is a microcosm of the universe, which is a computer, and so that's what you want to do so that you can develop autonomy, not so you can be controlled mentally, so that you can develop autonomy. And so, hopefully, you guys understand the difference between the shadow work and the reflexivity. Again, like say if you're dealing with like peptide addiction and you want to break peptide addiction to certain phenomena, then something like shadow work could be very important. But again, you want to get out of this idea of looking at it as lower. You want to address it from the primordial realm, prime conscious, autoconscious, which is connected to your higher self, which is connected to uh perception beyond, how do I say this? Perception beyond the mind, perception beyond what is pure, what is impure, what is transcendence, what is not transcendence. It is beyond that. And that is the God level. That is the self. And so when we see like these doctrines, like when we talk about primordial, and we see, oh, the Agori was this darkness, that means that we can do whatever we want. When we was reading these terms and these texts, not we, but there was a lot of misinterpretation, and there was a lot of fuckery, a lot of foolery as a result, that we see in the world because of the misinterpretation of stolen knowledge. That's what stolen knowledge. I remember I was watching this video by Homegirl, and she published it, I'm going to say 3 years ago, and she said stolen knowledge has cursed the world. And what she said, stolen knowledge, which in the video she said stolen knowledge has messed up the world, fucked it up. And it certainly has. It certainly has. But I would also add misinterpretation of that knowledge, because uh, again, the deal that we had when this simulation was created was uh, for the species that was evolving, that that was that was given this simulation, for those who wanted to come and have some free will. Their job was to teach what was already in the evolution stage here, or what was already, or if they wanted to experiment with their genetics, it was only supposed to be for the higher good of the cosmos, and genetics, that's something across all dimensions, that regardless of what universe you're in, and as far as like experimentation and innovation, and those are things that is not a big deal. But when you do things that are against the laws of the universe, with in the name of genetics, or in the name of engineering species, then um, that's when the big wigs come out. That's when the ancient ones come out, and that's when the universe bends towards justice, right? And so that's why I'm making this video. I just wanted to correct some things. And who am I? I'm just, I'm only Kali. I'm only the chief architect. I'm kidding. Uh, for those who know who I am. But yeah. I wish you guys well on your journey. I'm growing. I'm definitely growing. I'm definitely doing this reflexivity in real time. Don't think that, oh, I just hit the pinnacle and oh no. I am definitely doing this reflexive work in real motherfucking time. Like every day, every second I'm thinking and I'm growing, but I'm also trying to keep on to awareness and keep on to the gifts that I've been given and not to be in my lower self. You know what I mean? Like I've been in definitely like I've had people tell me, uh, you need to you need to go. What did they say that you need to embrace your darkness. You need to you. Mother told me that spirit told me that you need to embrace your dark side. And I remember thinking, I'm like, there go their programming. Because I'm like, if only you motherfuckers knew, I've been there. I've embraced that from 2020 to 2022. That's all I've damn near before that. Even before 2020. So I'm like, I've already been in my lower self. Why would I want to stay there? Why would I want to go back and embrace and that's how they get y'all. That's how they get y'all, man. And that's all I'm gonna say. But yeah, I've already been done that, done drank, done smoked, done them party hardy, done I have never really been wild, promiscuous or anything. That's never been my thing. I've never been a promiscuous type, but I've definitely engaged in, watching, all types of debauchery pornographies. Well, whatever whatever, so, I've already been there, we all have our vices and minds, I know what mine was, you know, and I'm happy to say that it's been 8 months since me engaging in that particular vice. And so, 8 months compared to, you have years, you have a lifetime. I have years ahead of myself, but, um, just overcoming just what I've been through in the last 2 years, last 3 years is one hell of a feat for me because I was dealing with just nonstop witchcraft, nonstop, um, programming nonstop, just nonstop. And I have felt it too. And I'm just like, I just couldn't really pinpoint who it was coming from. Now I know exactly who it was coming from. But for a while, I knew something was off, but I was just like, I didn't have that full awareness. And so I would encourage everyone to always to seek out awareness, what they call seek out the kingdom of God, or the kingdom of God is within. Seek God's face, what they say. I would encourage people to continue to do that, and I would encourage people to seek that ever self awareness, and that's my journey. It's ever self awareness, and you know risk everything for your state of consciousness, for a higher consciousness, and for your self awareness, for your soul. Risk everything to keep on to that, to hold on to that. But never risk your soul or your higher consciousness for anything, for anything. And so as long as you remember that, you'll be good. And um, there are some teachings around that I had learned from Osho about that. He called it awareness. But I would say like that's like your consciousness and your soul. When he said that, quote was his exact quote was risk everything for awareness, but risk awareness for nothing. How did I want to make sure he said risk everything for awareness, but never risk awareness for anything. And he was dead serious. Like when he said that, that shit. When I listened to him and he said that, and he talk real kind of monotone, but real slow paced. He's not a fast talker. Uh, but when he said that, I felt like the universe shatter around me, shattered. Like it was like boom. Like I just imagine a big thunder, like boom, when he said that shit. Just something so simple. Just something so simple because that level, and if those of you who know, you know, who are there, you know what that feels like. And you know how much you're under attack for getting at that level. And you know when he says that, it's like he it just hit my soul. That's all I gotta say. And so if you guys type in, if you guys want to know more about that, you could just type in risk everything for awareness Osho. And he said that. And so that's what I'll leave you guys with. Remember, your subconscious mind is actually your prime conscious mind. Your prime conscious mind is your primordial self. Your primordial self, and your primordial self gets inundated with content, with socialization and programming from as soon as you get a physical body, right? And so you want to do the reflexive work to assess that socialization on your self, the socialization effect on this on your physical self in the simulation, and then you want to just reflexively determine if it's inauspicious, auspicious, if you want that particular content in your mind, your prime conscious mind, to drive your conscious mind, your current state of consciousness and reality. It's as simple as that. And so that's all I'm saying. So wish you guys well. Talk to you later. Bye.